you can probably look at the version on Google. I don't know how you want to do it. So, but yeah, let's kind of go through it. After we're done, I just want to kind of continue the notes, the vocab that we talked about last Monday and Tuesday. So if you were gone, absent, it's been a long time, since we've seen it. It's been almost a week, 6 days since you see some of the vocab we've talked about. That'd be kind of a nice day to review. Probably tomorrow we'll look at probably our first assignment of the week, something small, something that maybe a Google form that you have to fill out, answer some questions on a Google form, just so it's kind of easier. I still want to continue doing the online homework where you have to submit it. It's really organized. You can see if you turned it in or not. It kind of reminds you like, hey, you didn't turn this in yet. So I might continue that, from this point forward. So just it's convenient. It's all the homework's coming in one spot. The only bad part is it's always a pain in the butt trying to hand it back because you can't see the markings. So. All right, let's kind of walk through here and let's take a look at kind of what we're doing here. So this is the unit test. It's out of 59 points. That's pretty standard for mine. The test scores are usually between 30 to 50, somewhere in that range. This is kind of the bigger ones, just because there were the questions there for like the systems took a lot of steps. There was a lot of things you had to do, so there was a lot of points there. So hopefully you didn't skip those. Again, this was the period 1 exam. There was 4 different versions that went out, and it depended on what time of the day you took it, or if you took it on a different day, because I had some people that were gone Friday, they took it Monday, they had a different version as well. So there was a lot of different versions out there just to curb, cheating and whatnot. So to curb people from, telling what the answers were. So, let's kind of go through these. So hopefully you can kind of see this. Yeah, it looks okay. All right, so for the first one, you had to figure out the type of sequence. So you had to identify the sequence itself. Some people forgot to do this, or maybe you just didn't know the word. There's 2 types of sequences. There's a typical sequence, or regular sequence, I would have accepted that, or an arithmetic sequence. Both of these are typical, or regular sequences. The reason why is that they're going up and down by different numbers every time. It's not going like +4, +4, +4, +4. It's actually bouncing on different patterns, back and forth, back and forth. So that's something that you just need to know. They're both really visual. So you could have done it by seeing the gap, -10, +11, -10, +11, or just every other number. So here, I'll highlight these in different colors. So every other number was going up by 1. That was the way that I created it. So it was going 18, 19, the next one would be 21, then 22. And the other numbers that I skipped over, 8, 9, 10, 11, it was a really visual sequence. So you could have, some people actually recognized it, I think, by that. But it was a typical. They're going up by different numbers every time. It wasn't, just going up by 2s every time. Both of these were typical. So you had to actually identify that. If you didn't, I counted a point off. So if you forgot to put that word typical, if you wrote arithmetic, you got a point off because it wasn't arithmetic. The next one, again, it's going down by 6, up by 7, down by 8, up by 9, down by 10. It's using the normal like integer numbers, but it's going plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. Again, there was a visual aid. There's a visual. So if you're a very visual person, it was going up by 1s every other, and it was going down by 1s every other. If you could see that. Some people recognize those visual patterns. Some people don't. Once you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's seriously how you made it? Yeah, that's how I made it. So they're both kind of the same idea, very similar. The sequences in the later units, like section 7, way different. Like those sequences are way different. So there was one in particular, I think it was period 6. They had a tough sequence. One of them was actually kind of a challenge. So. But yeah, let's kind of move on here. All right, so you had to solve the following equations. You had to show all the steps, all the property names. This one killed some people. It really hurt the grades because some people didn't put any steps. They didn't put any property names. I did say you had to, show all the work and label each with the correct property. So that was in the instructions. The instructions didn't change. So you can see my work here that you had to add 10 to both sides, so it's add property VQ. So I added it to both sides. Then the property of opposites canceled these out to make 0. It was a positive 10 and a negative 10. And yes, I had to actually put the 0. That's property of opposites. That's an inverse. Again, it goes property of EQ, prop of EQ, some type of equality where you're adding or subtracting, multiplying or dividing. You're doing some type of inverse, and you have to be super specific on what inverse you're doing. You can't just write inverse. And then you have to do an identity. And then you had to do substitution last. That's how every property worked. So if you were kind of looking at your notes, that's kind of how it worked every single time. All right. So now, so I added 0. That's the property of opposites. The identity is where I added 0. So I just got 0 plus x is x. That's the additive identity. And yes, you had to tell me it was adding, not multiplying. And then your last step was substitution, 12 plus 10. That's every step. It takes 4 lines of work to get rid of one number. Okay, number 4. You had to multiply both sides by 4 on this particular problem. So you had to multiply both by 4 because that's the opposite of division. That's division, so I had to do the opposite. So I multiplied, so that's why it's called the multiplicative property of equality. Then on this one side, it comes a reciprocal because that's an inverse where you multiply and divide numbers. Back row, thanks. Make sure you checked in the office if you haven't already. Okay, perfect, thanks. Yeah, you can just, yeah, that's fine. You can put it in the back too. I'll get it later. Thanks. So reciprocal. So we got 4 divided by 4. That's 1 on the left side. Then multiplicative identity, where you multiplied by 1 to get just the x. So that's the multi-identity here, where you just get x by itself. And then the last step is 4 times 12. I think the most common mistake on this one, and I think I had a very similar problem in every section. The most common mistake people made is they try to divide by 4 and not multiply by 4. You always have to do the opposite, the side with the x. So they're dividing by 4 on that side, so I had to multiply. It kind of tells you what to do. But yeah, those are your 4 steps. So again, if you're going to choose a retake, because again, retakes are optional this week, it'll be something very similar, a new type of problem. You have to know your property names, so don't feel like you're going to, it'll be a different problem. It'll be something very similar. So you just have to tell me the properties. Okay. All right, then this last one here, this is probably the hardest one for most people. You had to draw your own graph for a lot of you. Some people had graph paper, so they just took a picture of it. Great, fine and dandy. Now the coordinates, -4, comma, so -4, 5. Let's put this in like a bright pink color. So -4 over 5 up, that's A. 1 over 3 down, that's B. -8 over -1 down, there's C. 0 right and left down -3, there's D. Over 3 up 2, there's E. And then -5 over and up and down 0. Remember, the first number is right and left, the second number is up and down. That's how it always works. So there you go. Oop. All right, questions on the first page. So again, we're reviewing tests, so if you want to pull it up, maybe have it in your notebook, you can kind of look at it, I don't know. From last week, you can pull it up on Google, maybe, I don't know, where you had your version. Some people have it in their notebook, so they can look in there. So, there you go. Let's go to the next page here. So, all right, so next page, we had to draw this one. Again, every section had a different drawing problem. So mine started at -2 down. Again, it's always on the y-axis. So you're on this axis first. So I had to find -2. So that's that spot right there. And then my slope here is 3 over 1. You can make every slope a fraction by putting 1 on the bottom. So that means it's rise 3 and run 1. It's always rise over run. Go up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. The most common mistake, people went the opposite direction. They went like up 1 over 3. No. Top number's the rise. So, all right, but there you go. That's the type of graph I want to see. Next one. Oh, I think I lost somebody. So the next one, you had to move the 12 over, and then the 3x over, because I had to get it to y equals mx plus b form. That's the form I want to get into. So I moved the 3x and the 12 over, so those became positives and negatives, that type of thing. So they actually both became negative numbers. And then I divide everything by 4. So that was actually me dividing everything by 4. And 12 divided by 4, by the way, is 3. Somebody, I don't know what section it was. Somebody I had a very nice number. You had to divide by 4 or something like that, and they gave me a fraction. It was a nice, like, clean number. So I don't know what section it was, but I don't know if it was 8 divided by 4, if it was 12 divided by 4. But somebody told me it was like half or 1/3 or some weird number, when it should just be a nice, clean number. The slope, I can leave that a fraction though. I can stay a fraction. The good thing is you didn't have to draw it, so you just had to rearrange. Some people didn't go far enough. You had to get the y by itself, no number in front of it. Okay, number 8. I was worried about this one. This is the one I was most worried about. Some people had really nice drawings of it. You just had to be within the ballpark of it. And what I mean by ballpark, you had to be close. I mean, like, insanely close. The drawings, when I looked at your drawings, you had to go the right direction. You had to be crossing kind of the right area, that type of thing. Because some people, like, the drawings went like the complete opposite direction, so you missed points there. Some people did like really good, but they were just off by a number or 2, so that's not bad. It's worth 7, so don't feel like, oh my gosh, I missed all the points. It's worth 7. It was 3 points per drawing and then a point for the answer. That's how it worked, because that's the same with number 6. It was worth 3 points up above. So this top one here, I'm starting at -6, and then I'm going up 8 over 1. So start at -6, go up 8 over 1, up 8 over 1. That's how you draw it. Again, the back number is always where you start. The front number is always slope. Then the second equation here, I'm starting at +6. That's this number. And then I'm going down 4 over 1. Down 4 over 1, down 4 over 1. And that's exactly where they crossed. They crossed at, if I get rid of those markers, you can see it. They're kind of crossing at 1 over 2 up in the air. And that's exactly where they crossed. Some people, I think the most common mistake that people made, they knew where they crossed, their drawing showed it, but they wrote down the coordinate wrong. Right and left first, up and down second when you write coordinates. Okay, but again, this page, I think it was worth 13 points or something like that. Okay. All right. Okay, now here comes, this page worth 18. It's not as worth as much as the first page, but there was a lot of missed points because some people didn't finish the work. They didn't go back, plug it in, or they plugged it in incorrectly. Every class had a problem where, you could just add straight down right away. You didn't have to actually multiply by any number. I had somebody actually attempt on this one to multiply the top row by 2. That's fine. You can do that. You didn't have to. You could have just added straight down because the x's would have canceled. +9 and -9. So that happened in every class. It was some letter canceled out right away. So this ended up being a 1y because a -1 and a +2. And then on the other side you get a -1. So it just ended up being y equals -1 because you could divide the 1 over. And then you had to plug that back in. Well, I had to take one of the equations and plug the -1 in. So this is, I use the top equation, as you can tell here. There's the top equation. I plugged the -1 into the y location, so it was a -1 times a -1 because there was a -1 out front. Right there, you can see it. And so you can see my work here. -1 times -1 is a positive. I had to subtract that over. That was probably the most common mistake I saw some people make. And so I get 9, you divide, and you get 1. So it was actually 1, 1. 1, -1, sorry. X had to come first. And every class, I think they worked out all to be nice, clean numbers. I think the only class that had a weird, goofy number, I think period 6 graph on number 8, the last one I did, the drawing, didn't cross out a nice, clean number. They just had to tell me a rough spot where it crossed. Okay, number 10, you had to substitute. So this is substitution method. This letter is by itself, so I plug this stuff into that letter up above, so you can see how I did that. That was a 1y plus 3x, so you can see how I'm doing that. I plug the y in, the 3 plus x in there for y. I distribute the 1, I add the x's together, move the 3 over, and divide. I think this is a problem. Somebody told me a decimal. 8 divided by 4. Somebody told me like a weird number. 8 divided by 4 is 2. You have to divide the number over in front of x. And then you had to plug that 2 back in. Well, remember, when I always plug it back in, you should always plug into the equation that the letter is by itself. That makes it way easier. So when I plug in the 2, 3 plus 2 is 5. So there you go. The x was a 2, the y was a 5. And the last question, you had to set up a table. I think most classes, they had a 5-column table. It was 5 columns. I think there was only one class I had a 4 column, but it was almost the exact same work. Every class had a negation column, at least one. So what a negation column is, when you set your A's and B's up with your T's and F's, TT, T and F, FT, and then F and F, right? The negation column, this column is all of the opposites. So to get the negation column, you look at the A column and you negate them all. You can see this. Look at that. They're all the opposites. That's how you do a negation. That's the negation of A. And then for the negation of B, this one, I look at the B column and I read off all of their answers. And I negate them. The opposite of T, the opposite of F, the opposite of T, the opposite of F. That's negation. Then for the last column, why I'm doing that is because the answer I'm looking for is this. The negation of A, the negation of B, those two columns, and I'm putting an and in between it. And means both have to be true. So I'm looking at these two columns only. That's all I'm looking at. I'm just looking at those two for the final answer column, because those are the two I need. So for an and, they both have to be true. So are they both true? No. Are they both true? No. Are they both true? No. Are they both true? Yes. So 3 out of 4 were false. 1 out of 4 was true. I think for almost every class, it was the same math. I think that was the answer for every class. It was 75% false, no matter what section you took it in. I think. I'll have to look back. Okay, questions? Okay, so for right now, you guys can put your Chromebooks away. If you wish to take a retake, you don't need to say it right now. You can email me. You can talk to me in the hallway. You can just show up today after school or tomorrow morning or any day this week just to review. Obviously, we've already went through some questions, but maybe you want to go over like an algebra problem, or you want to go over one of these truth tables, or maybe you need to go over something with graphing. I don't know, something that to you need to work on. That's what you want to come in this week. I want the retake done this week if you're going to retake it. So this week. It doesn't matter what your test score was. I don't care if you missed 1, if you missed 100 points. I don't care. Anyone can retake it. You just have to come in and spend minimum of 5 minutes with me to review. So don't expect to come in here Friday after school and be like, hey, I'm going to take a retake, because I leave Friday after school. I have a basketball game at Forest City. So plan accordingly. So, all right, but there you go. So, okay, this is the one bit of notes I'd like you to have in your notes today, right here. The one drawing I'd like you to have. Yes, there's a bunch of letters here. So I have lines. I have a transversal here. I have a couple lines that are actually parallel. You can see the symbol here. This is the symbol for parallelism. Right here, that's the symbol for parallelism. Means the lines are parallel. The lines here that we have, this is MA. That line is parallel to ZE. Notice how I'm writing that. When you write lines, you have to write the 2-letter system. Now, on this particular picture, they've labeled the angles with letters as well. So angle C, angle F, angle D, angle B, they color-coded them. I just like this picture. I thought it was kind of clean. I would probably, on a test, I'd probably have numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of a thing. Same idea. We have a transversal here. Your transversal is... transversal in this particular problem is OH. That's your transversal. It's going through the 2 lines. What we need to go through today is the vocab terms. I want to go through the words that we talked about last week. Each word kind of one at a time, kind of talk you through it, make sure that you can identify by just looking at this picture, knowing exactly what angles I'm talking about. Does that make sense? Like the vocab? This is stuff we did last week. So you can always go back, watch those videos. They're online. I have them both there. So you can go back and see those. But again, let's kind of walk through them. So the types of angles we need to be good at. I'm going to make this list off to the side here. So the first one we talked about was interior. We have to know what interior angles are. The next one is called exterior angles. So we have to be good at those. The next ones after that will be alternate angles. So it could be alternate interior, it could be alternate exterior, but they're alternates. The other type of angles would be same side angles. So same side interior, same side exterior. And then the last type that we need to talk about is corresponding. So corresponding angles. These are the different types of angles that when you look at this picture, you should immediately be able to pick out. That's what I want you to be so comfortable with this week. You can look at it and go, yes, I know what those angles are. In our case, we're using letters of the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, E, F, right? In fact, it's B through, what, K? B through K? Except for the letter E. All right. So let's start right off the bat. Let me get rid of some of my markings here. All right. Let's get rid of some of these markings. Okay. Let's start with the first one. Okay, and we'll try to highlight these as we go. So maybe somebody can point these out. What do we remember from last week? Which angles up here are the interior angles? Interior. Again, definition of interior. They are angles that are sandwiched between two lines that appear to be parallel. So lines that appear to be parallel or close to it. They're the angles in between them. So what angles are interior? Can somebody give me the letters? Yep, and? GJ. Yeah, GJ. So it's these four, I'm going to circle them here. It's these four angles right here. These angles are sandwiched inside the two parallel lines. Doesn't matter how the drawing is sitting. Wherever your two parallel lines are, you have to look at the angles in between them. They're sandwiched in between. Those are interior. So when I go to the specific types later, and I say alternate interior, or same side interior, you have to know I'm only picking from those four. Okay, so those are interior. Then obviously the ones that I haven't circled yet are the exterior. So that'd be B, C, K, and L. So those would be the ones on the outside. Okay, are we good on the two types of angles, interior versus exterior? Yes. Okay, because if you don't know those, if you don't know where the interior and the exterior are, it won't make any sense for later on, because these are the ones we can pick from, right? All right, so let's do this next set here. So, I'm going to get rid of my marking here. Okay, so here we go. So let's deal with this next type. Let's talk about alternate interior. So we're going to get very specific now. All right, so we know we're picking from interior because this is the specific type now. Alternate interior. So we have to pick from just the interior, the D, F, G, and J, right? Now, for alternates, they're inside. One's on the one side of the transversal, one's on the other side. So one's on the right versus left side of the transversal. My transversal is going up and down. So, and they cannot be touching each other. They're non-adjacent. So they're in the inside, one on the right, one on the left of the transversal line going up and down, and they cannot physically touch each other or be side by side adjacent. So can somebody give me the two angles that would be alternate interior?
DJ and G.
Okay. DJ. Okay, I agree with that first one. Yep. DJ. And what was the other pair that you said?
FG.
Okay, good. Yep, so D and J. So angle D and angle J, that's a good pair. Those are alternate interior. They're not touching. They're one's on the left, one's on the right. And then you're absolutely right. The other pair would be F and G, right? So angle F and angle G. That's the other pair. They're paired together. Now, why I'm being very specific on the pairing? Because we're going to learn possibly as early as Wednesday this week, as early as Wednesday, the first properties about alternate interior. Something about those angles specifically. Those pairs, DJ and F and angle G. Okay, now exterior would be the same idea. So if I said alternate exterior, you're picking from the exterior angles only. That would be the B, C, K, and L, right? But alternates would be C and K, and then the other pair would be B and L. Those would be alternate exteriors. They can't be side by side, they have to be exterior, that type of thing. Okay, questions on alternates. All right. Okay, now same side, let's go to the green. So let's go same side interior, same side interior. So again, I can only pick from the interior angles, so here's my interior again, these 4. But now we're picking angles on the same side of the transversal, so what's my pairings? What's my pair of same side interior? Please.
F and J.
Yeah.
And G.
Yeah, this pair here, FJ, right? Angle F and angle J. And yeah, D and G, like I said. That's your other pair, angle D and angle G. Those are same side interior. They're on the same side of the transversal. Again, possibly as early as Wednesday this week, we'll learn our first properties about those. So you can definitely tell they're not the same angle. Like D and G. There's something about the pair. They're not equal. You can see that. D is kind of a small angle. G is kind of large. You can see by the shape of the bubble. That's right there. They're different angles, but there's a relationship there that we need to know. Okay, so those are same side. And we could also do same side exterior. So if we want to talk about the exterior angles, I'll circle these maybe in black. Same side exterior would be like these two. B and K, or C and L. They're on the exterior. They're on the same side of the transversal. Again, it matters which way this is tilted. All right, last one here. Last one. Corresponding. Now this one has probably the most difficult definition. It's kind of a mixture of almost everything. Okay, so for corresponding, you have to pick one angle interior, one angle exterior. Okay, so one interior, one exterior. They have to be on the same side of the transversal. So either pick just the right side, just like these, or just pick the other ones. So one's inside, one's outside, on one side of the transversal only. And once you've picked it, they cannot be side by side, so they cannot be adjacent to each other, touching, physically touching. So can somebody pick one angle inside, one angle outside that are not physically next to each other, but on one side?
D and K.
Okay, D and K, that's a good example. One's inside, one's outside. They're on the one side of the transversal, and they're not physically side by side. That was good. Can somebody else pick a different pair?
C and J.
C and J, there's a good one. Right? I'll use different bubbles. C and J, right? One's inside, one's outside. They're on the same side of the transversal. One more pair.
B and G.
Yeah, B and G, right? You can pick B and G, right? B and G. One's inside, one's outside. They're on the same side. They're not physically next to each other. That's corresponding. Okay, those are the ones I want you to get to know. We're going to look at them more tomorrow, so I'll probably have a bunch of different pictures tomorrow, maybe a little more complicated, and we'll get some practice before we start. So I'll pick on people kind of at random to give me some answers. So if you don't like talking, tomorrow will not be your day. Sorry. So, all right, questions. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. Again, reminder, this week, if you want to take a retake, it's got to be done before Friday. Before Friday afternoon, I should say, because I leave Friday afternoon for a basketball game. We have basketball at 4 City on Friday. So that's it today. We're done. So for those online, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys tomorrow.